Yes, we have a quorum. Good evening, everyone. This is the Community Preservation Committee public hearing, which was duly advertised in the Chronicle and is being televised by HWCAM, so you can look at it at another time if you would like to. This is the opportunity for people to come forward with any ideas or suggestions that they have, any ideas for future applications, or anything that they would like the Community Preservation Committee to know about. First of all, I'd like to go around and have everybody introduce themselves, and if they're from a committee, several of us are put on this board by virtue of other organizations in town that have selected us. Some of us are members at large.
Dennis Curran, Hamilton Wenham Joint Rec Committee.
Leo Maestranzi, 80 Larch Row, representing the Conservation Commission of Wenham.
Lauren Killam, 24 Perkins Street, Wenham, representing the Planning Board.
Harriet Davis, Chairman, 162 Cherry Street, and I'm an at-large member.
Arthur Burt, Vice Chair, Arbor Street, Housing Authority rep.
Barbara Locke, 10 Porter Street, and I represent the Historic District Commission.
Thank you. We're missing several members, but we do have a quorum this evening. Tom Starr, Patrick Waddell, and Natalie Bowers have not yet arrived. Is there anybody here who would like to just make some public comments?
Good evening. Sean Timmons, Hamilton Wenham Recreation Director. Really try to be as brief as I can, but really just wanted to have, as I mentioned, a brief discussion about the tennis courts at Pingree Park. As some of you may be aware, the Pingree Park tennis courts and their kind of evaluation and goal setting from the Wenham Board of Selectmen identified the tennis courts as part of their goals for the town administrator. So just to kind of read off the, kind of verbatim from the goals that the Board of Selectmen set, the fiscal year 19 and 20 goals that the Board of Selectmen set for the town administrator of Wenham. Evaluate community-wide need for public tennis facilities to accommodate both recreational and school uses and develop plan to meet those needs. So we're pretty much in the process, or the beginning process, or the beginning steps of that process, I should say. We did, the Recreation Department did commission a study and evaluation of those tennis courts. I do have copies here. They're on the website, and I'd be happy to pass along electronic copies to Jackie if she wants to distribute them to the board. And essentially what this report did was it evaluated the current conditions of the court and gave proposals for potential fixes, renovations, and cost estimates based upon those different recommendations that they put forward. So with the renovation of the tennis courts being a CPA eligible project, really just wanted to bring it to your attention tonight that we're currently in the process of the beginning stages, I should say, of working through this process and kind of with the goal set forth by the Wenham Board of Selectmen, and looking, to see, what options we have for those tennis courts. So really don't really have specifics, but just kind of from an overall viewpoint, just wanted to let you all know that we are working on that, and if an application was to come forward, just didn't want it to come out of left field or something that you may not, expect. So I thought that was important, just to make sure to let you all know that we are currently working on that and looking to see if we can come to a resolution on those courts.
Thank you, Sean. Is there anyone on the committee, starting with Dennis, who has any just offhand quick questions for Sean?
I do for Sean. It's kind of a little bit off base, but we all, as members, we received that email, that Sean's response to our ask, and I was wondering if Sean could share that with the public of the joint pool, give us the numbers for the pool program that were very positive.
Yeah, sure thing. I think, I guess maybe first and foremost, I should have said thank you. I know that the CPC has been very generous for recreation projects in both towns, so we do appreciate that. And really for the pool, I know, one of the things that we had talked about, and I don't want to go too big picture here, but I know one of the specific things that we had pointed out was the decrease in our camp program numbers when we lost the pool compared to when we had a pool, and how we felt that if a pool was to be built, that our camp numbers would rise and go back up to the level that they were. So that did happen, even better than to be honest with you, than we even expected. So just kind of ballpark numbers, the last year that the pool, the first year that summer camp where we didn't have the pool, we had 687 slots filled for our summer camp program. Not 687 children per se, but just 687 registrations. This past summer, which was our second year of the pool, we had over 1,200 slots filled, so it's an 88% increase in our participation from our camp program. So I mean, really it's the most, this past summer, I've been here for 8 years, this past summer was the most children we've had at our camp program since I've been here. We've actually had to add an additional group, and we're adding another group next year to accommodate, because believe it or not, even though we had 1,300 participants or slots filled, we still had probably about 50 or 60 kids on the waiting list, which we never really like to see, but we weren't really expecting that type of increase so quickly. So our staffing levels really weren't, where we would be able to safely accommodate all those children. And just from a revenue standpoint, which maybe even is more impressive. Excuse me, the last year the first year that we didn't have the pool, we had a little over $50,000 in revenue from our camp program. This past summer, fiscal year 18 revenue, we had over $120,000 in revenue. So that's a 133% increase in revenue from our camp program. So, I think, we'd like to take a little credit that the program has improved, but certainly I think the pool and the fact that we offer swim lessons as part of the program makes a huge difference, in our numbers. So we're really happy about, where the park program is and where it goes in the future, and really, kind of a testament and really appreciation to everyone who supported the pool and who continues to support our program.
Thank you, Sean. Leo, any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
No.
Arthur?
No, Sean, again, excellent job with the pool. I go by there just every now and then just to look, and very efficient, very clean, and the kids are having fun. And that picture you put in the Chronicle of Dennis learning how to swim with them.
That's what drew him in. That's what drew him in. I agree.
No questions.
So I just want to say that, didn't you also have something about how the pool is self-funding? In other words, you mentioned something about numbers, right? But you actually run a profit in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, so the pool pays for itself.
Yeah.
The pool and the summer camp program pays for itself. So I think that was one of the things that we had mentioned, when we were going through the process, that, we felt that, we were going to make it community only, which we have, so it's Hamilton Wenham resident only, that our park program numbers were going to increase, which they have, and that the pool was going to be self-sufficient, which it has been to this point. So really those were the three main points that we had brought up. Yep.
And I just say the pool has been fantastic. My family does spend a good deal of time down there. We see a lot of friends. We have lunch down there, get from Hamilton House. Just a great community asset. And when we drive by other people's pool, we say, ours is nicer. Yeah.
Okay, well, Sean, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else who isn't already scheduled to speak who would like to speak? We're going to hear from Wenham Affordable Housing and from the open space. If not, then I would say, Josh, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your committee group, whatever.
Hi, so I'm Josh Anderson. I'm the chair of the Wenham Affordable Housing Trust. I live at 26 Cedar Street in Wenham. So I wanted to come tonight not to ask for anything in particular, but to tell you about what we've been doing for the last couple of years, and the culmination of that with Wenham Affordable Housing Trust Action Plan and how we came to have this. So we've been working on it really for 2 years. And I have in your package some slides, and they're available on the web. I didn't get enough technology going to be able to put them on the TV, so forgive me for that. And I'm going to try to go through this. This was the presentation that was made at a Board of Selectmen's meeting, and it took about 45 minutes, and I'm going to try to take about 10, so bear with me, right? So in 2016, before we contracted for the action plan, we had a housing needs study done. And we incorporated that into the plan, and I'll talk about that in a second. And the process for coming up with this plan actually took about a year, from August of 2017, and we finally presented at the Board of Selectmen meetings in June of 2018. And the task was to figure out how best to allocate our funds to housing projects that both were efficient, effective, and did what the community wanted. So you see there there's a picture of the focus. Well, so we had focus groups. There's a community workshop that we had about 100 and so people come, and we had a number of different topics at tables, and we rotated people around at the tables, and we got an awful lot of feedback back. So the big feedback we got is on the second page, and it's kind of small and hard to read, so I'm going to try to go through a couple of the things. So generally, people were supportive of trying to get to the 10% level that will get us immune from adverse 40B applications, which I'm sure, since community housing is one of your mantras, you're well aware of. And for those of you in the general public that don't know, we're actually remarkably close for a town like Wenham, with only between 20 and 30 units needed before we can achieve that. So people were generally in favor of keeping that as a priority. A lot of participants felt that increasing the community's diversity and allowing seniors to age in place and welcoming new residents and families to Wenham are important reasons to create affordable housing. People thought that smaller, more spread out affordable units rather than large concentrated developments and then rehabilitation of existing homes to convert to affordable housing was favored. A lot of people thought that. Not everyone, but a lot of people thought that. That was a constant theme. The use of CPA funds, along with negotiated developer fees, cell phone tower lease payments, private donations, were all listed as sources for funding of affordable housing. And the biggest thing, the last one, was that participants really cared deeply about the strong sense of community that Wenham has and trying to preserve that. So there are a couple of slides that talk about what is the Affordable Housing Trust. I'll skip by those a little bit. And then what is affordable housing. I did want to point out what it means to be an affordable housing resident, because I think there's a stigma about affordable housing that we're talking about. Well, let me just tell you. If you're a 4-person household making $81,100, you qualify for affordable housing. It's a lot. I mean, that shocks many people. It's $81,000 and you qualify for affordable housing. And it goes down to a 1-person household of $56,800. So the needs assessment that we came up with, or that we had prepared for us by another consultant, came up with the primary needs of more rental housing, including for local workers, some first-time homebuyer options, and some handicap accessible units, including for older adults to allow them to age in place, and housing with supportive services. So then we took all that information and, I gotta flip the right page properly, the staple's backwards, and developed a plan to try to guide the allocation of the trust's funds. And we wanted to share that with you so maybe you can adopt parts and pieces as you work toward community housing. So the first thing was advance public awareness of housing needs and community benefits. So things like I just mentioned about what affordable housing really means in terms of income levels, I think is something that we want to make a big campaign, and what affordable housing looks like. It doesn't look like what a lot of people think it looks like. It kind of looks like every other house on the block. So that was the first goal. The second goal is to prioritize the allocation of the funds, especially to get the 10% Chapter 40B threshold passed. The third goal was to support initiatives to help address local housing needs. And the fourth goal was to advocate for town policy and regulations that helps promote and create affordable housing. So that's the goal of the trust, is to promote and create affordable housing. That's all the money we have can be used for. And so we wound up with 10 goals, or 10, sorry, priority initiatives and a budget. So the initiatives, we're working on the second to last page and last page of my chart, so am I all right? Do I still have time to keep going a little bit? Okay. So under the short-term goals, we wanted to actively promote the construction of appropriately scaled and located eligible affordable housing on surplus town property, because to the extent we have surplus town property that is not doing anything, it would be good to use. In response to the feedback we got from focus groups and the community workshop, we wanted to foster the conversion of existing houses to affordable units. We'd like to promote the construction of appropriately scaled and located affordable housing on privately owned property as well. There is one slide that has 8 initiatives, because they're sort of ongoing, and we'll see if we can do them. One of the initiatives was to potentially buy down market rate units to create affordable units. So far, the Affordable Housing Trust has created 2 affordable units. One of them was in the buy down program, where we bought a house, made it affordable, and sold it for a loss in order to convert that to an affordable house. That's been successful. So we wanted to look at potentially doing that again if the opportunity presents itself, not prevents itself. Excuse me. We want to implement a local public awareness campaign, promote progressive zoning bylaws that offer attractive incentives to create affordable housing, foster strong communication and integrated efforts among various housing entities active in the town, so like the Housing Authority we want to get closer to, and then keep track of and maintain all the documents that are relevant for affordable units in Wenham to ensure that we keep them affordable if possible. And number 9 was to refocus priorities for trust allocations after the town achieves compliance with 40B. So when we're done with, we're looking ahead. We're going to get past the 40B 10%, and then we got to see what we do next, right? Because and we'll look at that. And the last slide is a budget that shows sources and uses, and I thought maybe this is the most important reason to come by here, because the CPA is listed as a source, and we don't have specific things to apply that to now, but we hope to, and we hope to be able to come to the CPA and the CPC to apply for funding for specific projects in the future, and that's why it's listed there. We weren't presupposing that you would just give us money. We expect that we're going to have to present projects that are going to be worthy of the funds, and hopefully we can work together in solving this 10% thing. You can see under uses there are a number of places where we're putting money. There's staffing. We've now got some staff help to help us do some administrative things. Before we were all doing it ourselves, including our own minutes, which turned out to be suboptimal. So we've now got the champion minute taker of all helping us as well. And you see we have new construction on town-owned surplus property. We've got some assumptions there that we're hoping to be able to get a couple of units done that way. Number 2 is a conversion of existing homes to and homebuyer programs. This is a project that's come up recently and is the topic of some correspondence that's on the agenda tonight, as I understand. It just so happened, we understood that these projects were more expensive than, say, a big apartment building, but in a laundry list of, I don't mean a laundry list, that sounds derogatory, in a list of complementary initiatives, it just so happens that this came up first to us. And so we have committed to help Habitat for Humanity purchase a single-family house that's derelict in town and has been derelict for some time. When we mentioned it to the police department, they were so excited. They were well aware of the house and so excited to have something going to happen there. Habitat for Humanity first came in for 1 unit. We asked them to look at doing 2 units because, you know, that's twice as many units for the same amount of money. And we've committed to help them with up to $230,000 as a loan that will also help, that's callable in the event that it becomes unaffordable, or it goes off the tax rolls, or things that we don't want it to do. And in our plan, we're looking over 5 years to maybe do 2 of these, and that's it. We're not looking to make this our primary production plan, because we recognize that it's expensive. But here's the opportunity. We could double the amount of affordable housing we've created to date. And I know there are other projects that have been, like the one in particular that's in litigation, and I hope it comes out of litigation sometime, but in the meantime, we felt like here was a project that would work. So you can see then we keep going down, construction on privately owned property. We have hope for up to $600,000 in the 5-year budget. Buy down and market rate housing, we're up to $250,000 over 5 years. Public awareness campaign, $5,000. Working to try to help modify zoning so that it has inclusionary characteristics. We're looking to pay $50,000 for that. And again, this is a conceptual budget. We don't have this laid out to spend yet. We're trying to develop those things. So that's the plan as we developed it, and hopefully there's information in there that would be helpful as you consider the CPC's obligation to fund community housing. And these slides and the entire plan are on the website. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. What's on this side of the room?
Sure. I attended the session, and it was very well attended. And one of the things that surprised me was that the people wanted these smaller, more spread out units, so the Habitat kind of fits in there. Habitat also is building in Hamilton right now, and talk to people, and they find it a great opportunity for the local participation in building. 2 questions. Habitat becomes the owner, the person who is going to help build it will then own the property, correct?
No.
No?
That's not correct. This is going to become a condominium, and each of the residents will buy their unit, and Habitat for Humanity will supply the mortgage to them, and Habitat for Humanity will remain on the condo association, and that's how they wind up managing it. But the homeowners get homeownership. There's limited equity to keep it affordable, right? The limited equity appreciation over time, but it is an ownership program.
Okay. And deed restricted?
Yes.
So
Yep.
in perpetuity, it'll be affordable?
Yes, I think they actually do it through a ground lease to the condominium. You're getting a little bit deeper into the legal weeds than I'm prepared to do tonight. I know that our method of putting teeth into maintaining it as affordable is to make the contribution as a loan that's callable back, so we have some protection of the town's capital, so that if for some reason, I mean, you know, houses have a long life, and over a long life, anything and everything that can happen might. So we're trying to make it so that in the event something happens and they try to turn this into market rate housing, we'll get our money back.
Yeah. Well, I think for CPA funds, there's got to be a deed restriction in perpetuity in order to access CPA funds.
Okay. We're not asking for funds for this project.
No.
But
It sounds like a good point.
it actually presents it's an example of what the trust can do a little bit more nimbly than the CPC, because we don't require town meeting. It just has to fulfill our obligations, and the recommendations that we make to the Board of Selectmen have to be adopted by the Board of Selectmen. So,
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think this particular project is a good one because while it might be expensive on a per unit basis, my understanding, it gets a little resistance from abutters.
well, you know, when you have a derelict house that every policeman knows where it is, then it's you know, going to we've met the enemy, and it's the project, right?
And,
before it's been done.
Replacing it with 60 units.
Right.
So, you know, I think there's a need for the larger developments too, but those are going to always meet with some resistance, I think. And this integrates, you know, just like you were talking about the stigma and talking about what the minimum requirements are. There's no stigma to living in a house that's already there. In a sense, you know, it's not like a poster for affordable housing. Just
Well, we
one
actually
example.
hope it becomes a poster for affordable housing.
in a positive
In a
way.
positive way, yes.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, and I should mention, one thing I didn't mention is that we have been trying to figure out how to supplement the funding from the trust. We applied for a grant that the state offered for small-town affordable housing. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, but we'll keep our eyes out for other things to be able to try to supplement that.
Barbara? No, I think you have a really great strategic plan, and, you know, getting past the 10% would just be so wonderful.
I agree.
So thank you for the work you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your energy and effort. I think it's wonderful. I'd like to see both the separate housing, such as what you're seeing on Hull Street, but I also look at what's going on in Maple Street as well. Let me be clear, in my mind, that you want no money from us for the Hull Street development.
Right. That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay, interesting, because I'm an old-time loyalty fellow, and we have a semi-commitment to Maple Street. I know that's dragged out, but it should be coming to some conclusion shortly, so I'd like to keep my eggs and be loyal to the people we've supported. But I'd like to see a combination of both, to be honest.
We would too. That was
And
the outcome of the
survey.
the plan, yes.
When I watched that, and that was very good, and your work was excellent. So, good luck to you. I think it's wonderful. If wishes could come true, we could have both. But again, I think, as was alluded to, the larger complexes of 30/30, it would get us there quicker. And I hope, and we have to get to that number, because predatory development is something that I just despise, because I look at some of these units, they're disgusting. I look at the Danvers unit, and I think that's just a travesty, but that's another story. But again, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Don?
Our planning board is following the Maple Street development very closely. We've also met with Habitat for Humanity with their projections for building, and we're definitely on board with them. Looking forward to it.
Good. As a member of the group that is listed on the lawsuit, I've been following it closely as well, the Maple Woods project.
And by the way, we are too, you know.
Yes, I know.
See is on.
And, you know, I wish them Godspeeds getting through the litigation. Litigation shouldn't take, it's up in its 4th year maybe now?
No, it's not that.
3rd year?
Maybe entering the 3rd year.
I think it's well through. It's
3 years, and it was gone before I got
Yeah.
to working in Wenham.
I think it's well into its 3rd year, if it's not beyond it. So that's,
Okay. Anything else, Don?
No, that's
Leo?
Josh, Leo Maestranzi on 80 Latch Row. I laud your pursuit of the 10% because it's very important to the town. But we have like 8% now, close, and we're striving for 10% affordable housing.
yeah, we need about between 20 and, I think it depends on what we're going to wind up getting a new number when the next census comes out, but at last count is like 26 more units.
And we have about 80 or 85 units in town.
114 is
Do we?
what we need. I think we have,
I think we have 92.
I think you're right.
Sorry, 92 in front of court.
I'd have to go check my minutes because we put it in the minutes.
And I believe 80 of those, at least 80 of those 90 are on Enon Village.
Isn't that 94 total with including? It's 94, so I think we're
So
105,
almost
106.
all of the affordable housing we have is at Enon Village. I live adjacent to Enon Village, and believe you me, they're a friendly, quiet, credit to the neighborhood. I've lived there for 41 years, and it's been a heaven. Really, they're really great. As to your project on Hull Street, that was you were looking for town input a couple of weeks ago. It seems to me that's costing about $145,000 a unit.
Well, 115, I think,
115.
unless we can supplement that.
Plus the lot, though.
Nope, that's all we're paying.
That's okay, about 115.
Yeah, which is high. I agree, Leo. It's a lot of money.
To get the 10%, just the 10%, that'll be just the 10%. It'll be over $2 million.
Right.
$2.5 million. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
if we did all that,
Yeah.
but of course the
Yeah.
plan isn't calling for us doing all that.
well, I'm a businessman. I like to get my money's worth. I always have been since every 81 years, every one of the 81 years I've been around. And so I hope, like Don and a couple of the other committee persons mentioned, I hope we really pursue that Maple Woods project, because that would insulate ourselves and our children from 40B. So.
And probably our grandchildren, the children's children, and some on beyond that, absolutely.
So please, you and your committee, go to it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Dennis?
Thank you for your efforts, and the board has really got my interest with the same thoughts.
Good.
Keep moving forward.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else?
No, I think
All right, good.
I think we're all very grateful for all your hard work on the committee. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Now our next presentation will be by the Open Space and Recreation Committee.
Thank you. Ernest Ashley of 9 Foster Street, and representing the Open Space and Recreation Committee. I'm also on the Board of Water Commissioners for the town. And my understanding is to provide you with an update. I'll start with a thank you, because the funds from the Community Preservation Committee were utilized to hire a consultant, the Chicolo Group, who assisted the committee in constructing an open space and recreation plan. So just in words of the timeline, we had our kickoff meeting in September. We had a public forum in November, and then through November and December of 2017, we had a community online and paper survey open. We had several meetings with the Open Space and Recreation Committee, and then a second public forum. And all of this time, we were assisted by the Chicolo Group, and in particular, our representative was a member of our community. And so I thought it was very helpful. And of the 3 firms that we interviewed, or rather reviewed their portfolios, the Chicolo Group was head and shoulders above the others. And we are very pleased with the plan, which resulted, and I can wave a copy of the said plan. So the public support, as I mentioned, really was through the 2 public forums that were held, and also the results of the surveys. We had 382 responses, which works out to about 26% of the households in the community. And of those, there was support for the purchase of land, and including the potential use of CPA funds. So to be clear, I am not coming to the committee with a request for funds at this time, but one of our concerns as the Open Space and Recreation Committee is that we had gone through this process one time before, but really didn't follow through with any process for accumulating or being able to purchase lands. So in the process, we identified goals, and I can go over those, and priority actions. And then what I would like to speak with the committee about is what might be options for funding mechanisms. So the goals were identified as to protect the town's natural resources and open space areas, which contribute to passive recreational enjoyment, walking, hiking, scenic views, picnicking, wildlife, and many of these things were identified from the surveys that we had. A second goal would be to improve our trail networks, cycling paths, sidewalks, to provide the recreational opportunities and activities such as walking, running, hiking, cycling, and wildlife observation. A third, to provide and maintain the facilities and resources for active recreation and opportunities for all residents. And then, most importantly, I think, to sustain the town's commitment to carrying out this plan. In terms of priority actions, we want to evaluate properties that are in Chapter 61. Chapter 61 provides for a reduced tax burden, providing that the town has a first right of refusal for properties. And we've seen some properties come and go where the town had a first right of refusal but really had no mechanism with which to act on them. And I know that the Community Preservation Act has a requirement to have meetings like this on a certain schedule, and then needs to go to town meeting to be able to approve large expenditures of Community Preservation Act funds. But the Chapter 61 provides for a very short time frame for a first right of refusal on behalf of the town. So we worked with the Chicolo Group to develop a process by which we could evaluate the many properties that are under Chapter 61 for the town. And it culminated in a spreadsheet that is Excel-based, so this is only the paper copy of it. But it basically used the weightings that we obtained from meeting with the public and for our surveys. What is important? Protection of views, protection of water supplies, a variety of things, but also understanding in terms of wildlife connectivity of these properties and other things that we may want to consider. And these were then weighted, and one of the next processes that this community, the Open Space and Recreation Committee will do is to meet and go through this spreadsheet and ranking. And then we would identify which would be, say, high priority and next priority properties. Now, that doesn't mean that those will come up in that order for the opportunity. We want to consider the establishment of some type of funding source. We have been in communication with Ipswich, who had at one point a bond that the town meeting passed that enabled then the town to be able to act on some purchases. And one consideration in our Open Space and Recreation Committee would be if the town had such a bond, would some Community Preservation Act funds be available to reimburse the town for properties that they were able to act on more expeditiously. So we would be interested in having open communication about what funding mechanisms would be there. Other funding mechanisms are grants, and the fact that we have submitted in early September this plan then puts this town on good footing and enables us to apply for grants that require that the town has gone through the Community Preservation Act process and developed a plan. So they know that we have a system, that we have gotten input from citizens on what priorities are important. So there are several grants. And for example, I'm on the Water Commission. There's one right now for drinking water supply protection. Our situation is one where our wells seem to be pretty well situated, and there aren't industrial properties nearby. We haven't identified any properties to purchase. But again, there were several grants that might be coming up. We will be meeting in the near future in subsequent open space and recreation meetings with Ipswich to get more information on how that process worked for them, as well as to start going through the process. Regarding the grant that the Community Preservation Committee provided, it was for $24,400. Of that, we have some residual left over. We expect one final invoice from the Chicolo Group to finish it. So we were able to accomplish what we set out to within the funds that were granted, and we have a little bit of left over this time. And with that, I will entertain questions.
Dennis, oh, sorry, Natalie.
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
This is phenomenal. This is, we could have really used this probably 3 or 4 years ago when the golf course came up. We definitely need a map, a plan of where we're going and identifying the pieces of property. It's $25,000 that we spent, and well-spent money. Thank you for your efforts.
Okay.
Leo?
Thank you for your plan.
So this was one of the things that we spent that money on, was the development of GIS-based plans that showed all the various
Upside down.
properties in town in terms of which one.
You were just testing us, that's all.
Glad you're all paying attention, thank you. So I'm sorry, I don't have the colors right in mind, but again, it shows ones that are Audubon properties as well as already in conservation trust versus the ones that are in Chapter 61 that would require action on behalf of the town if they are going to stay in that type of situation.
Is
And
that,
again, it's very interesting. We have a unique property owner, we'll call it, in the Salem-Beverly Water Supply Board, because that property is protected for water supply, but it forms a corridor essentially from the Great Wenham Swamp all the way over to the Audubon property by Parsons Hill. And it's very unique. We have been in contact with them about access around Wenham Lake. There's certainly some property that would be nice to have trails around, but we have been informed that that is really off limits because of the Wenham Lake use as a water supply. Wenham's Canal is somewhat similar, except it has obviously been accessible for the population. So we're kind of working carefully to make sure we don't upset what we already have in terms of access.
is that map on the website?
Yes, so there's a draft of the plan on the town website, and all of the maps are included at the end of the draft in the appendix.
Thank you.
With people coming in to vote here, could that map stay around for a few days, like until the 6th afterwards?
Yeah, I
Just so
think so.
people could- Good PR, when people see it?
We could post it up in here. That would be great.
Thank you.
Leo?
Thank you for your efforts. You know, 10 years ago, when the CPA was ready to be voted, I laboriously lobbied my neighbors and friends to vote for it. And the pitch I used out of the 4 categories was open space. And in the 10 years that we've belonged to CPC with the 3%, we haven't spent a dime on open space yet. And so this committee man is looking forward to welcome your applications. You mentioned Ipswich. I've followed Ipswich a little bit, and they have hundreds of acres that they have secured in the last 15 years. And they're a model, and they, I think it's wise, like you mentioned, that you're going to consult with them.
No, I have nothing to say.
Great work, excellent, thank you.
Barb? I echo all the sentiments. Great plan, Ernest. Good work. Thank you.
I'm on the committee with Ernest, so I know well what was involved. I have to say that I thought the Chicago group really gave us a lot for the money. At first, I was thinking that it was kind of a lot of money for this report, but the work was really intense. And just to confirm, the status of it is it's at the state now, awaiting approval and/or revisions.
And we understand it's usually a 3-month process for getting comments, so by the end of the year, we expect to have comments back. Usually there's some minor changes so that they can justify reviewing it, and then it will become our plan.
Thank you. Pat?
I think this is great. Again, I wish we had had it 3-4 years ago. So the bonding process that you're talking about is much like the process we use for town hall, I believe.
Okay.
We're incur debt, and then basically the CPA funds are used to pay down the debt. That's the model you're speaking of?
Is there a set aside or a percentage on community preservation funds to go to open space?
Yes, 10% every year
Minimum.
has to be set aside.
And then whatever we decide of the other 60%.
But you said a minimum of 10% of our annual revenues.
Okay, and which has not, as Leo said, been
Correct.
spent yet?
Not one
Yeah,
dime.
so this
Okay.
is quite a bit down, but property's expensive.
Ernest,
Property's expensive.
thinking about this, if something is declared wetland, that could not be developed. So you wouldn't be going after wetland per se, correct?
Correct.
So we wouldn't be, shall I say, wasting money. Okay, I'm just linking some of the areas in town. Yeah.
I mean, several of the things that were considered important were views, stone walls, other things that give our community a lot of character. I know I take the train, and as soon as I leave North Beverly, it's a completely different environment, and some of that is the type of thing that we're looking at. One that comes to my mind is the farm as you go down 97. And you see the Wenham Swamp, and you see all of the farmland adjacent to it is a spectacular aspect of the town. And I think we need to be thinking ahead to how those types of properties will or will not come into the town.
Have you tied in with Brad Hill at all?
We haven't had him at a meeting. No, we have not at this point.
Sagamore Hill and Willowdale Forest, they were gonna be put in, it was private land inside Willowdale, it was gonna be developed. And Brad got onto that and made certain that wasn't developed. So he has a lot of expertise, just food for thought.
Okay.
Okay.
We did talk to Green,
Are there any other questions from the committee? If not, I want to thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
That is the last presentation for which we had some advanced knowledge. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to come up and say anything while this is still the public hearing? If not,
I would just like, I spoke with both Sean Timmons and the athletic director at the high school today, and this is something that will come up at some time soon. Our football team has chosen not to play at the high school on their playoff game this weekend because of the condition of the field. The boosters are going to rent Manchester Essex Field. The boys soccer team is going to rent the Triton Field. My wife's team may rent a field so that they don't have to play on the mess that we call our high school stadium field. So that is going to come before us at some point.
okay, it's good to know, thank you. Michelle?
I am Michelle Bailey. I am speaking as a resident, but obviously there is an issue with tennis courts in our town, and I am hoping that the Recreation Committee will come forward with some sort of a plan to repair or replace the tennis courts that we have. They really are the only public courts of a size that are reasonably to be used. Hamilton does have some, but they're limited in number, so they're, there's not that many. And while the WVIS has very nice courts, they're not technically public, and they're not always available to the public because there's programming there throughout the summer when it's nice to use them.
I would point out, Michelle, Sean Timmons did raise the issue earlier, and as far as the WVIS courts, we are currently, I'm president of the WVIS, we are currently arranging for the schools to be able to use the courts this spring as they did last year. But I agree that is not a long-term solution. Is anything?
Can I make a quick statement?
Can our tennis team use that as?
Sorry?
Can our tennis team use those courts? Are there enough courts there for them to have
They've used them in the past.
for meets?
But it's not suitable for a meeting.
Yeah. Can you have two teams there?
Can I make a statement? The main reason why they're not suitable for matches is because Pingree has 4 courts, and they can run and go right through the order of the match. Hamilton has only 3 courts. How many does, I'm not even, 3. So this has been on our radar for well over 5, 6, 10 years. It's to the point, it's a $300,000 thing. It's on our agenda, the rec committee, every month Michelle, I would highly recommend, look at our agenda. We need people to come in and, because we can do some lifting, but we can't do all of it.
Yep, I do. Unfortunately, your meetings are at times when I have other meetings.
I understand. Well, I don't want to put the burden just on you, but, you know, if you, I know that the night that we spoke to the selectmen about it, this room was full. All we need is 1 or 2, 3 bodies to help us start the direction, and we'll tell you and guide the process. As a rec committee member for 15 years, we get things accomplished. It's a slow, grueling move, but it's municipalities. It's the way it's got to be done. So please, bring them in, and it will stay on our agenda every month. We have the tennis courts, so.
Okay.
Could I just ask,
Go ahead.
Can I just ask a question? So the point is that the school teams don't have any place to play except on public courts. Is that
That's
basically
correct.
it?
Yeah.
And why is that? Why doesn't the high school have a court?
The high school has no facilities for tennis.
They never have.
Right, but why is that?
Well, there's
Good
no-
question.
There's
Just
not a lot-
asking.
there's not a lot of land there either
Right,
to build
right.
courts.
There's land adjacent to it that was available.
That's a good question, Tom.
Yeah.
The school committee could have, you know, said we should pursue that, the selectmen, when
There
Laura
is-
was up for.
In the school committee, now, correct me if I'm wrong, they have a facilities master plan, and I believe they're incorporated.
Yeah.
But
No, they're tennis
the
courts.
the funding for that, they're trying to do a lot of private funding,
Right.
and, you know,
Tennis courts were eliminated
were they eliminated?
Yes, that's what I had heard.
because there isn't enough land.
Okay.
So,
And Michelle is on the school committee.
Yes.
Jean.
Well, I'm not trying to, I'm
In the
positive.
school committee, I'm just saying,
No,
I
no,
think
yeah.
as a resident,
Yep.
Mike, we used to play on those courts. We don't play there.
Right.
It's not
Okay,
safe.
is there any other input at this point for the public hearing? Hearing none, I'm closing the public hearing at 7:51. And I'm now going to open the meeting for the Community Preservation Committee, our regular scheduled meeting. So, take a moment to grab your agendas. And the very first item on the meeting is the approval of the minutes of January 25 and October 10. Is there anyone who would like to move?
Mr. Chairman, I read them both, and I didn't find any problems with them, so I would like to move that we approve. Do we do one at a time or both?
I think we should do one at a time.
All right.
Let's do the January 25th, 2018 meeting.
I'd like to move that we approve them as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Any corrections anyone has noted? If not, all those in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Thank you. And now for October 10th?
I'd like to move the same, approve them as written.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any discussion, any corrections, additions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, so we've done that. Now, we heard during the hearing thoughts and proposals for upcoming possible applications, and now it's time to hear some final reports from some of the projects that we have funded. And so the two that we're going to hear from today are the Bucher Playground and the Pingree Playground. So, who is here to speak on the Bucher? Good.
Good evening. My name is Gene Lee. I'm at 7 Anthony Road in Hamilton. I'm the vice chair of the school committee. So I'm here to speak on behalf of the school committee to present a final report of the Bucher Playground. First of all, I want to thank the board for the generous contribution of $20,000 for the Bucher Playground. Much of the effort really is has to be attributed to the Friends of Bucher. Their committee raised the money from both towns, CPCs, as well as from private donations. So the effort really belongs to them and their amazing work in raising the money. As of, so I have a final report presented by Assistant Superintendent Jeffrey Sands. As of, the project was completed on August 29th, 2018. It had a total project budget of $151,755, of which $20,000 of it was from the Wenham CPC. Final expenditures totaled $150,956, leaving a balance of $799. So 99.47% of the funds were spent. If you go by the Bucher Playground, you'll see a great facility, great playground. My kids have played on it. I'm sure it's been well loved by the children at the Bucher. The balance will be kept in a separate account for ongoing maintenance needs for the playground. So.
And I understand that the old equipment is going to be given to, is it City of Lawrence, once proper documentation is received?
Yes, I believe it is being repurposed. I did not know it was Lawrence, but I understand it is being.
I think it's Lawrence.
Lawrence, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great use of repurposing equipment.
Good. Natalie, do you have any questions?
No, my kids play on it too. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, great project.
Mm-hmm.
Did a good job.
I'll have to go over and look at it sometime.
Please
So
do.
don't let us catch you playing on it there.
I get stuck in the swing. It's just not quite.
You know, your knees don't bend like they used to, right?
Right.
It is very nice.
My only question is, was there ever any question of relocating the playground? Because I know that there were parents who didn't like that location. And back in the day, when my husband went to Bucher School, it was in the courtyard behind Bucher School, in between the center school.
I don't know of any consideration of a different location. I can certainly ask and inquire about that.
It just seems like, because it's a road. I know they close it during school days,
Right.
but when neighborhood kids are playing there, it's still a road.
Yeah, it always seemed pretty iffy to me.
To have it moved to the center of
Does
the
it?
main field.
Okay.
That should be locked, because I live close to that area with Dennis, and there are little kids that do run out from, soccer games, little league games, and it can be an issue. So if that gate gets closed, because I'm just concerned, because we did have
There's two gates.
I know, but we did have a child injured there on a Sunday morning, severe head damage, and we brought it up, but it went to no avail. But just
Not by a car?
yes,
A car hit him?
hit this young lady, yes.
Many years ago, someone who's sitting in the audience
Yes.
brought this forward to the selectmen twice to close that road. I think the public safety people want to
agree.
keep it open.
But those memos have been lost,
Mm,
and those people are no longer here.
Right.
got it. All right, well,
Yeah, it's-
sometimes the third time is the charm.
Happy new people.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We're glad the project worked out well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
And now, the next one is the Pingree Playground.
I wasn't sure of who was coming. Sean said he was gonna speak to it, but he's already left.
Yep.
So we don't have anyone right now, as far as I'm aware, because I think
Okay.
Sean said he would speak to it if no one came in, but I think he's gone, and I don't think anyone's come in.
Okay.
Looks
Pingree, of
great.
course, is separate from Bucher in that this was a Wenham project as opposed to a school project, whatever.
Right.
I do believe it was successfully completed, and it was opened, around Thanksgiving? They had, last year, didn't they
They had
have?
come in last year, to give a close to final update.
Yep.
From my understanding, the only major changes since, Lisa Fall, who was the chair of the Friends of the Pingree
Right.
Park Playground, I believe it was some landscaping, the final sign, and the dedication, the rededication, excuse me, have happened since Lisa had been
Yep.
here. But I think that committee, had trouble finding someone who could be here tonight.
Be here tonight. Could you ask them to give us a final written report
Of
that we
course.
could follow up with and have at our next meeting? That would be very good. Thank you for that. Now, our fund balances, Jackie, can you tell us about them? Did they change from the last?
Sorry, excuse me. So you do not have anything in your packet tonight. Our new finance director started today. Very exciting, very exciting. Super excited to have Patty Moore here. And her and I will be meeting in the next couple of weeks to go over CPC finances. And so, but I did want to let you know that we've collected to date for fiscal 19, based on what's been booked in our accounting software, approximately $100,000 of the surcharge so far. We had estimated that in FY19 we would get about $300,000 from the surcharge. So I think it's important to know that obviously a lot of tax bills were due today.
Yes.
So those will be getting booked soon. So that's when we see another big infusion to the revenues. But so we're a third of the way of our estimated revenue in terms of the local surcharge. There's also some very good news for those of you that didn't see it from the state on our state match, in that we had estimated our state match this year very truly super conservatively, but it may be a little bit higher than we thought because the FY18 closeout bill for the state was approved and has some CPC funding in it. Not a long-term solution. The Registry of Deeds fee increase did not pass. That's kind of the long-term funding solution, but there was some extra money thrown into the CPC match account as part of FY18's closeout. So hopefully we see that in the second and third rounds of funding as a 3% community.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The application date, we just want to reiterate that, is Monday, January 7th at 4 o'clock in the town administrator's office. There are no extensions allowed.
Good for pushing that, Patrick, last time. Good idea.
So, and it's fairly difficult to schedule a meeting, a future meeting at this point. We need to see what the applications are. We know we have town hall debt, and that's all that we can be absolutely certain of. So, depending on the number of applications that we get, we'll need to schedule a meeting to go over them and to vote them. If there are only 2 applications, it will be a fairly simple process for us.
Right.
But if that's all right with all of you, we'll reconvene in January at a time and date to be agreed upon.
Sounds good.
I move we adjourn.
Yes.
Second.
All those, sorry?
Can I ask a quick question about that deadline?
Sure.
So that's a Monday.
Yes.
If town hall were to be closed because of snow, would you extend the deadline one day?
Yes, I suppose, yes, if it were, if town hall were closed. We had the date in prior years at noon on that preceding Friday.
Right.
And that also caused some problems because people weren't aware that town hall closed at 1 o'clock and submitted applications the afternoon. Those we could not honor. But in your case, if the building were closed because of a snow day, that would be understandable.
There's a motion and a second on the floor, Ms. Chairman.
All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Leah's going to leave rubber out of the pocket.